Hello, nerds, and welcome to another Civ 6 Leader Pass breakdown video. Last time I just did a live reaction of the Great Negotiators pack. This time I want to do a more in-depth breakdown of the Great Commanders pack, which include such civs as Tokugawa of Japan, Nader Shah of Persia, and Suleiman the Magnificent of the Ottoman Empire. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into some of these new leaders. So I think the leader that people are the most excited for is Tokugawa of Japan. Now, I'll go ahead and break down some of his abilities and also talk about some of the potential strategies you could use to get the most out of your game. If we talk about Japan, I want to go ahead and talk first about the Japanese leader ability that you'll be losing. Hojo is the normal leader for Japan, and his leader ability is the Divine Wind. +5 combat strength for land units and naval units fighting on coastal and shallow water tiles. You also get half-cost holy sites, theater squares, and encampment districts. And districts and improvements are immune to hurricanes, 100% damage to hurricanes in Japanese territory to civilizations at war with Japan. That last hurricane part is mostly flavor, as noted by the Civ 6 developers, but the main crux of their ability is the combat strength and the half-cost districts. This is pretty massive. So Hojo, of course, is a fantastic leader. This is a really big part of Japan's kit. You tend to want to go naval domination with them, and all these half-cost districts really help you get your cities online early on a coastal start that generally might have pretty low production. So it's important to know that you'll be losing these abilities when you play the New Japan. However, I think there's plenty of abilities that are still very much to look forward to. The first is a Meiji Restoration, which is the Japanese Civ ability. Districts receive +1 adjacency bonus for each adjacent district instead of the 0.5. This makes Japan a fantastic district-hungry, brawling empire. This works well on archipelago maps where you don't have a lot of land, so you can at least get a little bit of adjacency on small islands, or it can work really well for a larger landmass where you can get a bunch of cities together, district all of your cities together, and make them look really good. So you can see all your districts work really well together, which are a really big part of his kit. To note, you do also keep the Samurai, which is a man-at-arms replacement, unlocked with feudalism instead of apprenticeship, and they also do not lose any combat strength when they are wounded, and the Electronics Factory, which is a factory replacement that provides a little bit of extra culture, which is just nice. It's just nice. Now, Hojo here is a little more focused on doing a little bit of war, a little bit of simming, and a little bit of everything else. Tokugawa here plays very differently. He is known as the Isolationist, and you can see his leader bonus here, Bakugan, which you can see international trade routes receive negative 25% yields and tourism, but domestic trade routes gain 1 culture, 1 science, and 2 gold for every specialty district at the destination. Cities within 6 tiles of Japan's capital are always 100% loyal, and after researching flight, gain +1 tourism for every specialty district. Now, that's a lot to unpack, but we'll take this one at a time. To keep things in simple terms, domestic trade routes are the way to go, as opposed to international trade. Usually you don't see any type of civs that have actual, penalties to their international trades. Usually you see a lot of people that have positives to something like domestic trade routes, like Poundmaker of the Cree, who gets food and gold based on camps or pastures at the destination city, or Pachacuti of the Inca, who get extra food for domestic trade routes for every mountain tile in the origin city. Now, there's a couple things to note about Tokugawa's ability. +1 culture, science, and gold is fantastic to get on domestic trade routes, just because generally domestic trade routes only give you food and production. You have to trade internationally to get big boosts to your gold income and a little bit to science and culture. So it's really nice that he's getting these yields on his domestic trade routes specifically. He'll be able to trade and get food, production, culture, science, and gold. You'll get almost everything except for faith, just from trading. So you're going to want your harbors and your commercial hubs on as early as you can. The second part about this ability is that this is based on the destination city, which is huge. So let me show you an example of someone that doesn't work this way. Hachikuri gets food based on every mountain tile in the origin city. Now what that means is when you settle in the mountains, you can send a trade route back to your capital and you can get a bunch of food from that direction, but it doesn't work the other way. You can't settle a city far away from the mountains and expect to get any benefit from having a trade route from that city back to the other cities. But if anyone's familiar with the Cree, they get food based off of the destination city. Food and gold based on the destination city. So if you have one city that has a bunch of camps and pastures, you can really stack these abilities by sending all of your trade routes to that city. I once played a game as the Pound Maker where I had 5 total camps or pastures in the capital, and I was sending all of my trade routes to my capital. As soon as I would settle a city, I would build a commercial district, get a trade route, then send it back to my capital, and they were instantly getting an additional 5 food and 5 gold, as well as the production and the other buffs that you get from that. So Tokugawa's ability works just like this. Because this is destination city, whenever you send a trade route, it's +1 culture, +1 science, and +2 gold. For all of your trade routes, if you build a trade route in every single city, all of your cities will, for the rest of the game, be trading with your capital and getting a ton of extra gold and culture and science. The other thing about this ability is that this is based off of every specialty district. Now, generally, your capital will have the most districts because it's the first one to settle, and it usually grows to the largest. This means getting extra food is huge and growing really tall, which is why going for a early religion with Tokugawa, so then like feed the world to get you extra food so they can grow your city to this size where you can get tons of specialty districts, and then all of your trade routes will get additional culture and science and gold for every district that you build in your capital. Now, which districts would you build is actually a very important question, because what you could do, if you're not familiar with how domestic trade routes work, you get food or production based off of the total districts that are in a city. So, if for instance, if you look at the Holy Site, when you're trading internationally, you get 1 faith to an international trade route, but if you're trading domestically, you get +1 food. The same thing is true for campuses that get +1 food, as well as theater squares that also get +1 food. But if you trade with a city that has a commercial hub, instead of getting food, you actually get +1 production from domestic trade routes, which is interesting. There is 2 specific districts that will literally give you the best of both, and that is the government plaza. When you're trading domestically, you get both +1 food and +1 production. The same thing is true for the diplomatic quarter. If you build both the government plaza and the diplo quarter in your capital, every time you settle another city and build a commercial hub or a harbor in that city, you will get a trader. You can make that trader trade with the capital, and you'll instantly be getting +2 food and 2 production if you have both of these districts. If, for instance, you went for Holy Site first as well, try to get Feed the World, you'll be getting, between those 3 districts, you'll get +3 food, +2 production, and then you'll also get a total +3 culture, +3 science, and +6 gold for all domestic trade routes. That is an incredible tempo, where all of your cities, as soon as they get up and running, as soon as they even just get a trader in, because you can send them at least, like your first city you settle, you can send your free trader to immediately to help it get up and running. And as soon as you build a commercial hub there, you can get a trader to the next city, and that city can work on a commercial hub using the yields that you're getting from that trader, and then they'll get another trader, and then it goes from city to city to city, and you can get a ton of literally all the yields you need. You definitely want to go Magnus and try to get surplus logistics as well. If you run surplus logistics, you'll get 25% growth in that city. You throw Magnus into your capital, you'll be able to chop out things very quickly. You also get 25% growth in your city, so that your capital can grow super tall, super fast. And then all of your trade routes ending here. So again, a destination city will get an additional +2 food to their starting city. So this 2 food can stack on top of the food and production you get from the government plaza, from your diplo quarter, from your Holy Site that is also giving you food, and then the 25% growth in the capital. It's just gonna make all of your cities grow incredibly fast. Incredibly fast. You can also go ahead and throw in provision here so that you make sure that you're not consuming population. so you can continue to build those districts as you're continuing to settle. So Tokugawa, fantastic domestic trade routes, rivaling even the Kree and Pachacuti, because they both just get food and gold, while Tokugawa gets all of the yields. And for instance, if you did go for a holy site and you did get a religion, you should be getting some faith return, and you can try to use monumentality to settle a good amount of cities around your empire. Now, you can see the other part of his ability is that cities within 6 tiles of Japan's capital are always 100% loyal, and after researching flight, gain 1 tourism for every specialty district. Now, I wonder how much of this ability really affects you. It's interesting that he's not really disincentivized from settling 6 tiles further than the capital, which is good for a couple of reasons. If anyone's familiar with the Maya, Lady 6 guy here, all of your non-capital cities within 6 tiles get a boost, but anything that's further than 6 tiles away gets negative 15% to all yields, which means you pretty much want to, for the most part, settle as much as you can within that 6 tile radius, and it kind of feels bad to settle further than that. Now, everyone hates when the Maya ends up spawning coastally, because your game ends up cutting the amount of land that's available to you in half immediately, which generally hurts quite a bit. Now, the thing about Tokugawa is that Japan has a start bias for them to almost always spawn on the coast. That means the 6 tile radius around Japan might only be, you can only settle in like 1, 2, or 3 directions most of the time, which means you're probably gonna have to settle outside of that 6 tile radius to get the number of cities that you're gonna need to try to win the game. However, he will end up playing a little bit taller than maybe Hojo's Japan, but you're gonna want to try to cram as many cities as possible within that 6 tile radius for 2 reasons. Magi Restoration here, all of your districts are going to get huge adjacency bonuses for cramming them all together, getting all your districts next to each other, and then you'll also get that plus your 100% loyalty, and then +1 tourism for every specialty district. This is not a lot of tourism, but it's an extra little bit that might help you in the culture game. I'll have to actually play this to see if it really has much effect, but +1 tourism onto your, for instance, your theater squares that already have your great works, and your +1 tourism for campuses, and I believe this is only specialty districts. So things like aqueducts and dams won't be getting this tourism, but like every single other district is pretty massive, which is another reason why you might want to go feed the world, so that all of your cities can go probably commercial first to get that trade route, but also holy site second, so you can get the extra food so that your city can grow as tall as possible, and you can get as many districts as possible, so that you can get as many adjacency bonuses together, and then also get a little bit of extra tourism. And I think he can still play a tourism game, because you can see you get negative 25% yields to trade route tourism. However, this pretty much only cancels out the 25% buff that you normally get from a trade route. So when you send a trade route to another civ, you get a 25% tourism buff. This is 25 minus 25, which means 0. So you're not really incentivized to go trade with every other civ in the game to win the culture game, which can get a little tedious, which is nice. But if you end up grabbing any great merchants that buff tourism from your trade routes, or you have other tourism buffs, you might actually still be able to get some benefit from trading with other civs in terms of tourism. So I think Tokugawa of Japan seems really fun. I think he seems really, really fun. Amazing civ. He sounds incredibly powerful. The fact that he loses half-cost districts is probably okay. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I think if he had half-cost districts and he got all of these yields per district, would have been incredibly broken. Incredibly broken. I think there's a couple different ways you can play him. You could definitely play him the cultural tourism victory, which he has a couple buffs for. You could also play him as a science victory, just because of the amount of science and production you can get from your harbors and all of these trade routes. It's just so good. It's just so good. I wouldn't play him domination, not because he wouldn't be good at it, just because the other Japan would probably be better. So generally, whenever I see 2 different leaders of the same civ or 2 different personas, I generally play them very differently. Because if you're not playing the 2 different personas differently, then they weren't designed well. I wouldn't play him domination unless I really wanted to. I wouldn't play him religious. I think the only reason you go for religion with him in the first place is feed the world, but there's plenty of argument just to completely skip it as well and just focus entirely on your harbors and all of your other districts that you need. And of course, I don't care about Diplo, but I think he'd be a very fun civ to play. He's probably the first one that I play that I'll be streaming on White and Nerdy TV at Twitch. So come check me out. Now that was a lot. I know, but hopefully that deep dive, that early deep dive might have helped some of you. Now let's go ahead and move on to the next leader. This one might be a little bit quicker. Nader Shah of Persia. Now again, let's go ahead and look at Persia's abilities, and we'll look at Cyrus here. So the first thing that we'll be losing when we're not playing as Cyrus, but we're playing as the other Persia, is that we lose the Fall of Babylon ability. That is the +2 movement to all units when you declare a surprise war for 10 turns. Declaring a surprise war only counts as a formal war for the purposes of grievances and war weariness. Occupied cities have no penalties to their yields, which is considerable, and 5 loyalty per turn in occupied cities with the garrison unit. This is, of course, a very, very domination-focused ability. It is fantastic. +2 movement is massive. Now think about the units you're going to be using. You're probably going to you probably will be attacking with your immortals, which are swordsmen, which mean they can get the +1 movement from a great general. So +3 movement, and then you add an additional 2. You have 5 movement units, which again, let's look at immortals real quick. Immortals are swordsmen that have a range attack like an archer, which is insane. It's insane. They're a little bit more expensive to build, but that's totally fine. They have a 35 strength melee with a 25 strength range attack. But when you have a surprise war and a general on them, they'll get an additional 5 combat strength for both of these attacks, and they'll have 5 movement. They'll have movement like horsemen, which is absolutely insane. You can shred down cities very, very fast, and you can trigger this ability multiple times throughout the game. Preferably once for each civ you want to try to kill. You'll definitely get your immortal timing for the very first attack. So losing that ability is actually rather large. So let's see if Nader Shah's abilities will make up for it. Before we get to Nader Shah's, let's look at Persia's main abilities. And that are, you get +1 trade route capacity at political philosophy, which is nice. You probably want to get an early source of culture, so you can get to that quickly. And domestic trade routes provide 2 gold and 1 culture. Roads built inside Persian territory are 1 level more advanced than usual. So Persia does have a little bit extra movement speed from these roads inside of their empire, but you have to build your own roads, which is why having domestic trade routes is really, really nice to have. And Nader Shah's ability actually does synergize with that very well. There's 2 parts here. Plus, you have a +5 common strength for all units when attacking full health units. And cities not founded by Nader Shah get +2 faith and +3 gold on domestic trade routes. Now, let's look at those 2 together. That's +2 gold and 1 culture, and then an additional +3 gold and 2 faith. That is 5 gold, 2 faith, and 1 culture on all domestic trade routes if you conquer a city and you send the trade route back. So I think Nader Shah does play, in the early game, incredibly similar to Cyrus. You want to get your immortals, you want to go do some early conquering, you want to either kill city-states that are neighbors, or another major civ that is your neighbor. Once you conquer them, which, look at this, by the way. 5 combat strength for all units when attacking full health units. Think about this. What unit are you probably using? You're using your immortal. If you're attacking efficiently, you will probably have a great general as well. So this 25 strength range attack is 30 strength with a general. And with Nader Shah's ability, that first attack has another 5. That is now a 35 strength range attack. Now you add oligarchy, which is another +4. That's a 39 strength range attack, which is basically a crossbow. Nader Shah's first shot immortals are basically classical era crossbows if you set them up right. That's incredibly powerful. That will one-shot a warrior. That will one-shot an archer. That would do a lot of damage to a swordsman. Enough damage that their swordsman probably won't be able to attack back. That is incredibly strong. And I think this is something that people are kind of not really appreciating quite as much. I think it's fair because everyone values this movement so incredibly much. But I think Nader Shah's ability to get that +5 strength and to also stack on other abilities is incredibly useful. You can attack so Cyrus attacks so fast, while Nader Shah attacks so hard. Like it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. So I think both of them, you go for immortals, you go kill your neighbor. From there, I think Cyrus ends up going and using his abilities for the rest of the game and goes for domination, while Nader Shah has all of these economic abilities to give you culture and faith and gold. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to send your trade routes from your conquered cities back to your original cities, which again, you can stack the government plaza and the Diplo quarter in the capital. Again, just like we did with Tokugawa, to get an additional +2 food and production, and then also Magnus for another 2 food that will expand the roads to your newly formed empire. You can have these really, really nice roads to give all of your units a very fast movement between all of your cities. And then from there, you can do anything. You can focus on your paradisas and get culture and gold and appeal. Additional culture next to holy sites and theater squares. Additional gold next to commercial hubs and city centers. You get more culture once you get to diplomatic service. With all the culture and gold, you probably want to, you can continue the war. You can continue on a domination victory, or you can go into a simming into culture victory because they have all of these bonuses to the culture, or you can use this as a backbone of culture for a science victory, or you can do pretty much anything you want. Now, I think a lot of people have been looking at his trade routes, and in comparison to Tokugawa, his trade routes are definitely weaker. His trade routes are most certainly weaker. But I think the extra combat strength and his unique playstyle will be fun. I don't know if he's going to stack up 1-to-1. And I really, really am not sure between Cyrus and Nader Shah which one of them are better. I think Cyrus is scarier just because that movement is so hard to predict. While Nader Shah, you can get your feet wet in some early warfare and then pivot from there and do whatever you want. So I think Nader Shah is more flexible, and he does make better use of the domestic trade routes that Cyrus wants to do. Because think about Cyrus. The golden culture from domestic trade routes is not a lot, so you end up trading internationally anyways. You get enough trade routes to get the roads that you want, and then that's all you really need. While you're playing Nader Shah, though, you can sit on your domestic trade routes for much longer. You can sit on them for much, much longer, and probably to the point when you get Visselbanken and all the other policy cards for trading with allies internationally. I think he makes a really good use of domestic trade routes early in the game. And remember, you get these bonuses from the very start of the game, which, even if they don't sound like a lot, if you can use an ability the entire game through all of the turns that you're playing, then weak abilities become strong abilities. I definitely have to play him. I think I'm gonna have to play him a couple times to figure out what really I think about him. Overall, I'm happy. He's got an interesting playstyle that, again, is very similar to Cyrus, but is different enough for you to focus on Persia's main ability. The name of Nader Shah is synergy. Nader Shah's ability synergizes with Persia's ability and with the rest of these unique improvements and everything. I don't know. I'll try him out. And last but certainly not least, we have our boy Suleiman the Magnificent, which I was very, very excited. Out of the entire pack, this is the one I was most excited for, just because I figured he was a more culture-focused Suleiman compared to the domination-focused. That was kind of half right, but we ended up getting to have a sneak peek during the Civ Give. My partner on Spot TV ended up playing Suleiman the Magnificent, and I ended up playing the Inca. And if you look at our game, even though Liege was completely smashing the rest of us, Onspot and I were crushing in stats, and I think his leader bonus had a lot to do with that. But again, let's start by looking at the original Kanuni Suleiman to see exactly what leader abilities that you might be used to that we're losing. And I'm not gonna lie, there's some big ones. The leader bonus here is Grand Vizier, which means we have access to the governor Ibrahim. For those that don't know, Ibrahim is a unique governor, and he's amazing. He's fantastic. He acts like Victor. He takes 3 turns to establish. You can establish in your cities and get 20% production towards military units immediately. You can get +5 combat strength in your own territory, which is very nice for defense. And also, this one is huge. Grants all units within 10 tiles of the city center 10 combat strength when attacking defensible districts. This makes Siege go so much faster. So much faster. He has a couple other abilities that help you hold on to cities, as well as increase your alliance levels with a ally. But Ibrahim was great. He's a lot of fun. I've only used him really once. I only had one full domination playthrough with the Suleiman. But this, of course, synergizes well with the rest of the Ottoman ability. The Great Turkish Bombard, 50% production towards siege units, and gain +5 combat strength when it against defensible districts. That stacks with Ibrahim's +10, which means districts and walls just melt. They melt with the Ottomans if you know how to play them right. But the other second part of the original Suleiman's leader ability is the Janissary. That is specifically tied to Kanuni Suleiman. So Janissaries Janissaries are a leader unique unit, not a civ unique unit. So the Ottomans now no longer have the Janissary, which is big. Janissaries are incredibly strong. You still have access to the Barbary Courser, which is a privateer replacement, and your Grand Bazaar, which is your bank replacement that also gives you extra strategic resources and amenities. So you definitely still have a good amount of domination focus here. But let's look at Suleiman the Magnificent's leader ability, the Magnificent. 15% science and culture when in a golden age or heroic. 15. That is literally Genevis's bonuses, but also to culture when you're not so that's a lot. If you're in a golden age, you can sim like crazy. Now, when you're not in a golden age, you get +4 combat strength against other civs who are also not in a golden heroic age. That is very interesting, because if you ever miss a golden age, that means, you know what, let's go attack someone. Now, the very specific thing to note about this is that the ancient era is included, which means you get +4 combat strength baseline with your warriors and with your archers in the ancient era. Or if you're able to get swordsmen incredibly fast, you might also be able to use that. This is really, really interesting because it puts you on par. If you're playing against the deity AI, they get a +4 combat strength by default. So it makes your warriors 1-to-1 with the deity AI. Or if you're playing multiplayer with your friends or with your nemesis, then you are very scary. No one's gonna want to pick on you early, especially if they're not gonna declare war on you and try to snipe a couple builders and stuff if you have warriors nearby, because you have 24 strength warriors. If you're very fast, you might be able to make something. If you're very fast, you might be able to make something out of the ancient era +4 combat strength. Maybe it's just to defend against an early AI aggression, just DD things. Or you're able to attack something that's really close. I don't think you can quite warrior rush another DD AI. Maybe you could warrior rush city-state, though they probably have walls, so that's probably really tough. But if you end up going bronze working and get some swordsmen, then you might be able to. That's really tricky, though. That's very, very tricky to do that in the ancient era. Usually a swordsman timing attack almost always happens in the classical era. But if you end up missing your first golden age, it's not a big deal. You can use your combat strength to go ahead and fight your neighbor, as well as use the Ottoman's abilities to get extra siege units, get catapults. Go ahead, go for a very early war. Yeah, if you don't get classical age, golden age, then for sure by medieval age. After conquering some cities and focusing on your own abilities, go for a golden age for your medieval era, and then just go. Obviously, the more golden ages you get, the better. The 15% science and culture is way better than just +4 combat strength, but at least you have something to look forward to either way. The other interesting thing that you could try with Suleiman is that if you purposefully Dark Age in the Classical Age, you still get this +4 combat strength, because it's specifically just when you're not in Golden Heroic. So if you happen to be in a Dark Age in the Classical era, you can set up a pretty strong attack, especially with a Dark Age policy called Twilight Valor. This is a card I generally don't see, because I generally am not hitting Dark Age in the Classical Age. But if you end up finding yourself in this situation, when running this card, you get an additional +5 combat strength to all melee attacks, but you cannot heal outside your territory. However, if you have a Classical Age Horseman Rush or a Classical Age Swordsman Rush, you'll have a +5 here. You'll have a +4 from Suleiman's ability here. You can get another +5 from a general, which means you can get +14 combat strength very quickly on another enemy, which means their city should fall very fast. Very quickly. Fast enough that not healing probably won't be a problem, because you'll just take the city, and then you can heal inside your own territory, and you'll be just fine. I think Suleiman the Magnificent has a lot of different ways you could play him. The original Suleiman was most certainly a domination-focused civ. Like, he's the definition of a domination-focused civ. And when you attack, could be pretty much in any era, because most of his bonuses are throughout the entire game to siege units and to combat strength, or specifically using your Janissary timing attack. Janissaries and Bombards. This Suleiman, you can definitely still go ahead, use Bombards, use Trebuchets, use Catapults, use whatever units you want, and you can even stay at war the entire time, regardless, because 15% science and culture, that's just great. Like, if you're in a golden age and you want to keep going to war, then keep going to war. The question here is whether this 15% science and culture amplifies raids. I don't know if it does. That is something I definitely need to test, because it doesn't say 15% science and culture in cities. It just says when in a golden age. So I think I'll have to try this out. But Suleiman the Magnificent, you could see OnSpot was using it very well in the Civ Give, and he was playing a very pacifist Suleiman. He was just focused on getting golden ages. He killed a city-state or two, but really, he didn't feel the need that he needed to go kill someone, because he was still getting these bonuses. Now, stack on top of this ability, stack on top of this some Pingala, stack on top of this Kilwa. Like, 15% science and culture is like having a Kilwa bonus of having both city-states across your entire empire. Like, this is just so good. This is just so good. I think Suleiman is a fantastic contender for very fast war-based science games, where you're doing a lot of pillaging, a lot of warfare, and trying to win the space victory as fast as possible, because you can get so much value. So much value. I'm incredibly excited for Suleiman. He definitely plays differently than the original Suleiman, but like the original Suleiman was so unique, so much fun. I don't know if this Suleiman is more fun or less fun. I think he fits more into my playstyle, just because I tend to be less aggressive. But that sounds like a me problem, not a you problem. That's something I have to figure out. I don't know. I am very happy with this new Suleiman. I think there's lots of different things you can do with him, and I'm really excited to play him. Other than that, I believe that's all of the new civs from the Great Commanders pack. Please let me know in the comments below what you think of each of these civs. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Are there things that Firaxis could do to try to tweak some of the numbers around? Because I think a lot of them need to be played to their full extent before you can really judge them too harshly. I reserve all of my final judgments to later on, If you found this video interesting, or if you learned even just one thing, please go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. It really does help out, and also subscribe. I have been streaming on Twitch for some time, but I'm finally getting the YouTube channel up and running, which is quite hard to do when I'm also have a full-time job, which is also creative and also on a computer. So I'm currently up at 11 at night. I've been up all day. So thank you so much for anyone that did subscribe and comments to the God of Algorithms Pantheon. Everyone comment yes, everyone comment God of Algorithms Pantheon. Let's go. All right, thank you so much, and hopefully I see you in the next one.